Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the Survival Hunter. Just a quick look for you guys here. Survival had an interesting amount of character notes and class notes when it came out. It's basically just buffed the damage. Now, that's not the whole story, is it? That's not the whole story, because there's a lot of things going away. Azerite and all those kind of things are leaving it. And how has it left it? Because Survival is getting representation in 8.3. A lot of people playing around Survival. The damage is there. It's doing all kind of things. But going back, similar to the Shadow Priest, actually, although less severe, rolling it back to its kind of base foundation, the problems are kind of just showing itself basically in just the flow of combat. Still not quite there, certainly in early starter gear. Now, I know many of you might be thinking, that's normal, right? That's going to be pretty normal. We're coming from end of expansion characters to new expansion characters, and therefore we're definitely going to be losing like the amounts of haste and crit and all those kind of things, which are going to have an effect on the gameplay. However, in the Shadowlands, most classes actually have a really good flow of combat in their starter gear. They're actually fine. The way the gameplay works means they're not reliant, for the most part, on end-of-life gear in order to feel good. Unfortunately, Survival is one of those specs that feels really behind the times as it gets started and maybe needs some buffs to resources, something like that, to get it back on grade. Now, don't confuse it with the amount of damage it does. It actually does quite a lot of damage right now. Its damage is fine. It's just a gameplay that just feels sluggish, feels like it's behind where it should be. And anybody who's playing certainly a Survival Hunter at the end of BFA is going to come into Shadowlands and maybe be like, oh, this feels a little bit more horrible. So let's look at what they actually did to it. The chakrams got reduced, so they're like 15 focus instead of 30. They still feel pretty good. Picking that target that's on the other end of the spectrum and having them rebound back to you is very cool. There is still the fun to have with Wildfire Infusion, having all the bombs throw out and all that kind of stuff. But the lack of overall focus regen makes Mongoose windows, which are what Survival is based on, is these big Mongoose windows. It's a real struggle. I was looking through it and couldn't see more than like 3 consecutive Mongoose bites where you're running 4 or 5 and so in BFA, and that really just feels really, it feels depressing. It feels like I'm not getting what I need to get out of there. And it did seem like running certain talents like Alpha Predator just seemed mandatory. So you could get double kill command, because kill command just has such a long cooldown that there were periods of time of standing around for like 6 seconds-ish with just nothing to do. Your character's just not capable of doing anything else. And that's the problem they probably need to address a little bit, is tweak the resources, tweak the amount of focus that you're getting. Losing the focus from Azerites that you were getting from Primeval Intuition. Things like that are definitely noticeable with their absence coming into the Shadowlands. They did return Arcane Shot and Steady Shot. Kill Shot is there. I mean, it's not doing anything, but it's, you know, it's there. But they also returned Arcane and Steady Shot, and they're in a spell. They are in your spell book. They do require a ranged weapon to use. You can equip one, sure, but you have Aspect of the Eagle, so you could basically be melee at range periodically anyway. Sure, I guess. I mean, it makes sense that the Survival Hunter would know how to use a bow, I guess. It just feels weird that they've stuck them in there. And whether or not it's like, well, we needed stuff that went across all of the specs during the unpruning. There's not much to unprune with Survival because it only recently got changed, so they kind of threw those back in. So it's one of those that's it's maybe a little standout, and that's the reason, because it only got renovated recently, that it doesn't really have much to unprune in terms of returning this thematic overall Hunter feel. So that is one of those. So not terrible with Survival Hunter, but it just definitely feels sluggish and way less fun than you're probably going to find it in BFA. And some tweaks to resources and things could pick up that pace again. Having some downtime is fine. Having huge amounts of downtime, not so fine.